Well, as you guys can see, the build went from a pretty simple leave the floor pan, leave the firewall, to completely gutting out the chassis. And sometimes that just happens. You know, we kind of measured things that were, you know, out there in the parking lot, and then we bring them in. Sometimes it gets a little different, and this time it got a little bit different, which means it became a little bit more difficult. Now, that being said, you know, there's already a floor in here. There's half of a firewall, so we just have to build all the rest of the firewall. Pretty happy with the progress. We've got about 15 hours in this so far.
Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the StealthBuilt build on this International Loadstar using the Chevy chassis. Now, we realized the front of this frame was way too long, almost a foot too long, and so I'm removing the lower core support section, which held the radiator before, and then cutting off the front of the frame rails. Now, there is a support directly behind here, which is where the steering hooks up, and then there's also a cradle under the engine. So this front bar here is really just for the bumper support. And when I rebuild everything, I'm not too worried about that flexing or anything like that. There is 2 supports right next to each other on that frame rail. So now I'm able to lower it down onto the frame, as you can see. And I realized that part of the floor that I had built before, we previously had this on another chassis. And I decided to go with the Chevy chassis over the Dodge chassis that I did have it on. Now, part of that floor section was going to hit the top of the LS engine, so I just cut that out, and then I'm cutting out part of the core support for the front of the Loadstar here as well, because it has to clear the steering box. So coming in here with a Sawzall, getting all this cut out, and then I can actually test fit it for real.
All right, so as you've seen, we got the cab down onto the chassis. You know, I had to do a bunch of cutting up here, and we just barely cleared where that steering box is. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of work down there. I need to reinforce some of this. Cutting all this structure out, it actually made the front end sag just a little bit. And I've moved this around for a while with the fenders bolted onto the cab, just to make it easy. The whole thing does move pretty good together, but with me cutting out a bunch of this extra support, I need to get the front end essentially the same, so I need to put some blocks under all of this and then come back through and weld in some supports so I get everything back strong. And then we're not far off. So right here you can see this is the body mount for the van, and this here is where the original floor framework was at. So we're really close to being able to pretty much just come up here, build a box out right here, capture all of that, and then put a captured nut inside of that box. And that'll give us our front floor mount. And it's the same on the other side. Luckily, we have access pretty easily, and there's the other one sitting right about in the same spot. So I've got to clean up that sheet metal a little bit. It's nice and strong there, so I don't have to worry about any of that. And then the back area here, you can see I've got just a piece of rectangular tubing that is sitting there, but the new floor is right here, and this is the original mount. So I'm going to make a little spacer here with a trap nut inside of it. This will all be welded to that new floor section, and we have our rear cab mounts too. Obviously, the radiator is not even close to the shape of where this radiator would have went, but if we were to put a electric fan on there, we could get rid of this, put an electric fan on that other radiator. And then the section down in here is plenty wide, even over into here. So I think we can just lift that original radiator up and, yeah, and still use it. So that's what I'm hoping. I gotta put my brunt boots on because just took a hot berry to the foot. So yeah, I'm gonna go change out of these shoes. That was stupid.
If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know I like cardboard because it's good for templates. And here I am making a template that I'm going to take over to my shear, get this all laid out onto some sheet metal, and then I can trim up the pieces, bring them back over, and weld them up.
Need some anti-fog glasses because these suck. Well, as you guys just saw, Roger has pulled the harness apart, so we've got it separated into a few different categories, and most of it is stripped off the chassis now, so all of this is much more open. So this will be a lot easier for when we build the firewall and all that. We don't have that big wad of wiring that was sitting up here. Now we've got it sorted out. He's got some of it here, and then we've got some of it sorted out onto a cart. Everything's labeled, so we should be ready to rock and roll. All right, so I got the mounts built for the front here, and now I'm going to work on the back. But I was actually thinking one of the things that I want to do is probably bolt the front up first. So I'm going to roll the chassis back underneath here in a second and roll the chassis in, make sure the bolts go up where I think they should into the chassis. And then if that all looks good, I'm going to put the rear brace, and which is going to be the mounts also. I'm going to put that in and mark where it goes. Make sure everything's adjusted where I want it, and then just shoot a couple tack welds on it. Then I'll lift the body back off, get the chassis out from under there, and finish the rear mounts. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's going pretty good. Everything looks really good, and yeah, so just got to tackle those rear mounts, and then this thing will be essentially mounted. I will need to build some mounts for the front grille section where we had cut that up and, you know, talked about that earlier. I will need to build some mounts for that. Just to keep the front fenders from sagging, of course. It needs some sort of support up front. So probably going to come off the frame rails with some kind of a mount. Haven't decided yet, but I'm going to get these cab mounts finished and then jump on that. So check it out. Right, so we are on to now making the rear, I guess you could call it a cab mount slash cab brace. So this is going to go kind of under the back seat, under the only seat. And then I'm going to weld drill a hole through this, both ends, and then weld a nut to the top, and then we'll be able to thread the cab mount bolt up through the bottom just like it did in the other, you know, on the van. So should work pretty good. I really need to get a different vise. This thing just isn't working. It's old, but I was looking at those, like I think the brand's Fireball tool or something. They make those really big vices with a ton of power. So maybe we'll invest in one of those in the future. But for now, I just need to get these holes drilled, get some nuts welded on them, and then we'll be ready to bolt this to the truck chassis, roll that up, and see if everything fits. So wish me luck. Yeah, this thing's awesome. Look at that. Beautiful. So you probably noticed I was moving this around a little. I was doing that intentionally. Because the step bit, it obviously is a smaller hole underneath when you get into something thicker, but rotating it just slightly opens up the hole on the bottom side as well. So we're essentially using the cutting surface from this, make it a little bit bigger on the bottom side. The part you can't see, there's essentially like a little ledge in there. But yeah, fits in nice. Let's do the other side. Like to thread a bolt on there, and that way we know that this is more or less centered. It also puts a little weight on there so that when I start welding it holds it flat. So I just hang the bolt out the bottom and just let gravity kind of do its thing. Well, I put these wood blocks on the floor to mark where to stop it. So things have moved around just a little bit. I think we're maybe half an inch or so off. So I've rolled it up to those blocks. I'm just going to lower it down and hopefully I can shift it around a little on the mounts and get it to line up. So there's our mount and our chassis mount as well. They line up really nice, so just got to come up from the bottom, stick this through into the hole. Well, I'm happy to say that the mounts lined up really nice. I got the bolts in on the first try for the front. See, they're sitting on those mounts. And the back, I had to, essentially we've got, that's where we welded that nut on right there, and then the tube. So what I need to do is recess a little part for this nut and bolt to go up inside of this cavity. So I'm gonna mark this, drill a hole, and then I'm gonna set this all the way down so this piece here will be touching the top of this tube, and then I'm gonna weld this tube to the bottom of this support piece, and we should have most of that buttoned up here in the next few minutes. So then the cab mounts are done. And what I'm going to do is come back through the front here. You can see where I cut out this old core support. I'm going to make some tabs that mount probably back here that I can mount this front core support to the original chassis here, or the new chassis. So that way we have all of this front end supported, because right now you can move it a few inches. It's just kind of hanging. So get all that made. And the cab is mounted and we can start working on the firewall and the floor. Definitely wear gloves. Those shavings are really hot. Doubling down. Cut the rest of this out with an air saw.
You know, having a lift really did make this a lot easier, but I will also say I did a lot of crawling around on the floor here to get everything in the right position. And, you know, working under this lift, although it's a lot easier than working from the floor, definitely gets a little tiring having your hands up in the air all day and welding over your head.
New boot goofing. Alright, so I got the front mounts done. I just finished up the back mounts, so I'm going to roll this thing forward, do a test fit real quick. Well, everything lines up really good, but I need to get some longer bolts, so looks like I'm going to run to the store. Now I've got the lift just under the front fenders here, because like I said before, they were sagging a little. I've lifted those up, got them equal, and now I'm going to go in here and make a mount that comes off of this frame rail up to here, and off this frame rail up in behind here. And that should support everything up front. Well, it looks like I got everything lined up. I wanted to fit the hood and the, whatever you want to call this, center section, just to make sure nothing was out of whack. So I'm going to bolt this in, grab the hood sides, just get those fitted up to make sure the gaps look normal. I'm going to put a bumper on this, so I got to access the frame rail in some way, so I may cut some of this out on both sides in order to get a bar to come out, whatever we end up building for the bumpers. Almost got a little tangled up in there. That latch needs some adjusting. Hood gaps look great. I think I'm actually just going to leave all this together while I work on that, because now this structure is very solid. You see how much that adds. Just this, really. Alright, well, it's not the prettiest mount that I ever made, but we're trying to figure out how to make this happen, because there's a bunch of garbage up in here that's old and crusty. It's not necessarily bad or anything, but you can see everything has a coat of crust on it, like the Titanic. And what I was trying to do was stay out of the way where the radiator's got to go right in here. And not quite this far over, but, you know, about where that hose is. And I was trying to stay away from that. So what I did was I welded a piece of angle on top of the frame. Got a piece of angle that's going to bolt onto here, and it'll bolt down here. And so that should support right on that main structure. That should support this side of the front end. And, you know, it's angle, it's not the prettiest, but that's kind of the point of this truck. I mean, it's going to be solid, it's going to work. Is it a show truck, like you're going to take it to Good Guys or something? No, that's not the point. The point of this is to be fun, to be done quick, and to be driving this thing around soon. Alright, well, I just finished up the mount on the driver's side. Looks pretty good. Welded to the frame up there. Got 3 bolts in the back, 3 bolts in the side. It is very sturdy now. Pretty happy with that. Looks like something from a farm, but so does the rest of the truck.
When I was talking about crawling around on the floor, this is exactly what I was talking about. Crouching down and climbing in and out of that little hole for about an hour and a half on each side was really not much fun.
Well, it's been a long day, but the whole cab is mounted. Pretty happy with it. The brackets actually look pretty nice. The cab mounts look pretty nice. I'm going to move this back. I got a bunch of stuff to clean up, and then I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow to put the bumper brackets on. I think I'm just going to use a 2-inch tube and slide it inside the original frame rail, and then put a like a mounting plate up front. So that should work out pretty good. And doing the firewall, getting the brakes, the gas pedal in, and a radiator, buttoning up a little bit of wiring. Obviously still have to connect the steering. I know that sounds like a lot, and it is. But I'm hoping 3-4 more days we'll have this thing driving around, so gonna try. Thanks guys for watching. If you're following the Audi build, we will be back. I'm just taking a little break while I wait on some parts and working on this guy. So please like, subscribe, and comment. If you enjoyed this build, let us know. I plan to do way more builds. I just got to have time, and the way that I make time is by having subscribers and having people that support me on this channel. So thanks to everybody who has supported me, who's been following the Audi build as well as the other builds we're going to do. So I hope you enjoyed the video.